Our first reading this morning is from Luke chapter 23, verses 32 to 34. They also led 2 other criminals to be executed with Jesus. When they arrived at the place called the Skull, they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right and the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." And our second reading this morning is from John chapter 20, verses 1 to 8. Early in the morning of the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. She ran to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord from the tomb, and we don't know where they've put him." Jesus and the other disciple left to go to the tomb. They were running together, but the other disciple ran faster than Peter and was the first to arrive at the tomb. Bending down to take a look, he saw the linen cloths lying there, but he didn't go in. Following him, Simon Peter entered the tomb and saw the linen cloths lying there. He also saw the face cloth that had been on Jesus' head. It wasn't with the other cloths, but was folded up in its own place. Then the other disciple, the one who arrived at the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed.
If you have been walking with us this Lenten season, you know that we have been studying forgiveness, specifically the fourfold path as outlined by the late Desmond Tutu and his daughter Mpo. As we have learned, the first step on the journey to forgiveness is to tell our story, maybe for the first time, and hopefully to the right person. The second step is more painful, naming our hurts, acknowledging the specific ways in which others have wounded us consciously or unconsciously. Step 3, perhaps the most fearsome of all, is choosing to grant forgiveness, making a conscious decision to free ourselves from the pain of resentment. Step 4 is deciding whether to reconcile the relationship or simply release it and move on, not in a glib or superficial way, but from a deep inner longing to be free. As we've said from the beginning, forgiveness is not for the faint of heart. It is neither a sign of weakness nor an act of capitulation. True forgiveness takes time and patience and courage and a powerful sense of integrity. As Desmond Tutu writes, forgiveness is relinquishing the right to revenge, which is a pretty pointless exercise anyway. Forgiveness means starting afresh, not forgetting the harm, but putting it in its place, living beyond it. It is not easy, but ever, ever so worth the work. Now, Jesus knows all about forgiveness. As he says from the cross in our reading, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing." This morning, I'd like to add a caveat. Sometimes people do know what they're doing. Judas must have known something bad would happen if he turned Jesus in to the authorities. Caiaphas must have known exactly what he was doing, sending Jesus to Pilate, since Rome alone had the authority to execute prisoners. The crowds were pretty clear as they shouted, "Crucify him." And Peter must have felt a twinge of guilt as he denied Christ 3 times. The point is, we too often know what we are doing when we deliberately utter some disparaging word or commit an untenable sin. This is why it's good to end our series on forgiveness with the 2 words that can redeem both those we harm and ourselves. I'm sorry. Like Heinz ketchup, I'm sorry is a phrase that comes in 57 different varieties. The words are some of the first we learn as children and the last we speak at life's end. There are seasons we use them in abundance, and times we resist them with all our might. They are an emblem of both humility and strength, the perfect accelerant for healing if they are offered in the right way. Sadly, the world is full of wrong ways to say, I'm sorry, so let's consider 4. First is the reluctant apology. I'm sorry, you grumble, arms firmly crossed across your little chest. You don't sound sorry, your sister says. Well, I'm not, really, you reply. Mom made me say it. Now, saying I'm sorry is good practice if you are a child and just getting the hang of it. The problem is, this habit often continues into adulthood, where I'm sorry becomes gratuitous, a clever way to avoid conflict, dismiss someone's pain, and deflect responsibility. Indeed, many a relationship runs aground on the shoals of, I'll say it, but I won't mean it. Second is the preemptive apology. Folks in this category apologize for everything. I'm sorry you didn't like dinner. Did I say I didn't like dinner? I can just tell you didn't. You barely ate a bite. I'm sorry I'm not good enough, smart enough, fit enough, good-looking enough, successful enough, kind enough, strong enough, generous enough, and on and on and on. Do you see the point? Nothing in this type of apology is about the other person. A preemptive apology is like anticipatory guilt, often a sign of low self-esteem and shame. Over-apologizers actually deserve our compassion. Many were taught as children to apologize for their very existence. Yet an incessant stream of I'm sorry dilutes the power of true contrition. What happens when the eager apologizer actually does something hurtful? Would he or she even notice? Would he or she even recognize there are other cast members in this play? Now, third is the ever-famous sideways apology. I'm told sideways apologies are very prolific on YouTube. Go figure. But we experience plenty in real life. I want to apologize for the big mess I caused last week at work. You see, I trusted the wrong person to get the job done. They messed up, but I suppose I made a mistake by asking them in the first place. It's beautiful. Sideways apologies are not all as blatant as the dog ate my homework. But sideways apologies are clever deflections, figuring out how to say you are sorry without assuming a bit of responsibility takes skill. I think the politicians in Washington have raised this kind of apology to a high art form. I mean, just tell the truth, for gosh sakes. And a derivative of the sideways apology is what I call the appetizer apology. It's when you serve up a little apology on a small plate in preparation for what you really want from them, which is a big apology, right? As in, I'm really sorry that happened, but, you know, I wouldn't have done that if you hadn't fill in the blank. It's really a very clever invitation for someone to apologize to you. Finally is the never ever apology. These are confessions that will never see the light of day. Remember the 1970 movie Love Story, in which Ally McGraw famously says, "Love means never having to say you're sorry"? Are you kidding? No wonder the divorce rate soared for the next 2 decades. But in all seriousness, there are people who cannot bring themselves to apologize. For some, apologizing is viewed as a sign of weakness or submission. Stand your ground and don't back down. Are misguided values passed from one generation to the next, and not just to men. Women also are taught to be fiercely defensive. Other never-evers fear retaliation, in which any wrongdoing will be revisited upon them in equal measure. In the spirit of eye for an eye, proportional justice is inevitable for these folks. You will get what you have coming to you. Think about it in the context of our relationship with God. If I do something bad, boy, is God gonna make me pay. And if God isn't your thing, try karma. It's the same result. This is the cost of imperfection. Now there's the God of love for you. Finally, most never-evers do not trust the world enough to apologize for anything. Saying I'm sorry involves extreme vulnerability. Without a deep sense of trust that one is loved and protected, admitting a wrong can be downright terrifying. Which brings us to our faith and to Jesus and to the reason we're here this morning, and to what I forgive you means from a cross. To say I'm sorry, to ask another for forgiveness, requires 2 things: a deep admission of our inherent fallibility as human beings, and a fundamental sense of being loved and accepted in spite of it. Let me say that again. 1, a deep admission of our inherent fallibility as human beings. And 2, a fundamental sense of being loved and accepted in spite of it. This is the absolute essence of our faith, the place where new life, where our own resurrection begins and begins and begins again. So what is a good-looking apology? How does one properly say, I'm sorry? Well, first of all, you must acknowledge your guilt. Not in a perfunctory, sideways, or evasive way, but in a deeply compassionate way. Saying I'm sorry is not about you. Your apology should reflect a deep understanding of how something you did potentially hurt another. Second, listen to the person you hurt. Open your heart to what they're saying and feeling. Remember, someday it may be you telling your story and naming your hurts, hoping the person who harmed you truly understands the depth of the pain that you caused. Finally, ask for forgiveness. Ask for forgiveness and mean it. And then wait. Maybe you will wait forever. Some wounds are just too deep to heal, but some are not. Know that by affirming the injustice, by owning the reality of what you have done, you have helped that person so much on the path to recovery. And in your contrition and humility, you have also created space for your own healing. A double portion of grace, which is, of course, God's way. Following him, Simon Peter entered the tomb and saw the linen cloths lying there. He also saw the face cloth that had been on Jesus' head. It wasn't with the other clothes, but was folded up in its own place. Then the other disciple, the one who arrived at the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. My friends, we have made a brave journey this Lenten season. May you too believe in the power of the resurrection to new life through Jesus Christ. May you believe in the power of forgiveness, in the possibility of healing in a tomb once full of sadness, now empty, and in a spirit, your spirit, full of God's love.